It's just not fair. How can small market teams compete when there are big spenders like the A's?
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all the Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And I am also where am I? I do it. Just follow me on YouTube. That's the best way to just get a hold of me these days. Good Lord, what do you want from me? And you can, by the way, you can also follow all the other great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network. And we've got all teams are going to be putting out great shows. I'm not doing two shows a day like I did last year. That was fun, but it was a bit much. And I'm not doing Locked On A's and Locked On MLB like I did last year. Check out all the great shows. But if you listen to us and you want to post anything along here, make sure you put that hashtag everyday Sully so I know who's listening. It actually helps, believe it or not. Let's go to the trivia question. Trivia question was, and by the way, today I'm gonna go on a little bit of a roll on Hall of Fame closers as my trivia questions. But uh, which future Hall of Famer recorded the first ever postseason victory for the Milwaukee Brewers? And GRT Hughes on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it right now, got it correct. The answer is Raleigh Fingers. Raleigh Fingers in the American League East Division Series, which was the emergency series that they played in 1981, pretty stupidly, in my humble opinion. They split the season in two because of the strike, and it was not fair to the Cincinnati Reds, who won more games than any team in baseball. But because they split it in half and they finished in second place in both halves, they had the best record in baseball and couldn't play in the postseason. The Brewers had the best record in the American League East, and they had to play the Yankees in a best-of-5 series. In game two of that series, or game three of that series, which was the first ever series the Milwaukee Brewers ever played in, Raleigh Fingers got the win. Raleigh Fingers that year, by the way, was the American League MVP and Cy Young Award winner, but was injured in 1982 when the Brewers played in the World Series against the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Brewers bullpen blew a game or two in that, including the finale. And yep, they never won their World Series. But there you go. Jared T. Hughes, good job on that. Let's tie some things together here. One of the reasons why I'm doing this show, I wanted to get ahead of the curve here because a big piece of news, I was wrapping up tonight and I saw a big piece of news took place, and I figured it was worth talking about. Lawrence Butler, who I got to see play a bunch of games as doing Locked On A's last summer, and I went to a bunch of A's games, including the final game at the Oakland Coliseum. And it's still going to be weird that there's going to be no A's in the Oakland Coliseum this year, but I digress. The Sacramento A's have signed Lawrence Butler to a 7-year deal, a 7-year, 65.5 contract extension. This is according to Jeff Passan. And Butler was terrific. He really was a really electric player for the A's, especially in the second half of the season. He's young. He's going to be 25 years old. He can hit for power. He can steal you a base. And he plays with great intensity. The fans absolutely adored him, and with good reason. The interesting thing is he started off, the first few months of the season, he was downright dreadful. And he turned it on the second half of the year. I'm going to go to baseballreference.com, the Singular's website, in the history of the planet Earth. We're just going to go over his splits. And last year was his first full season in the major leagues. And in the last the last in the first half of the season, he slashed 211, 280, 406 for a 686 OPS, which is, bad to mediocre. In the second half, he batted 300. His on base was 345. His slugging was 553, and his OPS was 898. So, I mean, it's a positive thing in one sense because he is a talented player. He's an electric player. He's the type of player you want to have on your team wherever you wind up playing. And it's showing a commitment, at least, you know, on, on threat of lawsuit for the A's to try to keep some of these young players together. And if you are an A's fan, whether you're staying loyal to them from Oakland or you're going to be there in Sacramento, or maybe if you're a Las Vegas fan and you can't wait to see them come to your town, even though I still don't think it's a done deal there. I mean, there's still it's now what March. You're probably listening to this on March 7th. Are they? It's supposed to be stadium's supposed to be under construction in the first part of this year. Um, it's March. The last renderings didn't have enough parking spots. I am not confident that a Las Vegas stadium is going to be. I will believe it when I see it. Kind of like the situation in Tampa. And it's funny, Brody Brazil, who I subscribe to, and I like a lot of stuff he does. I don't agree with everything he says, but I like a lot of stuff. Was pointing out there's some of the other cities that maybe I don't know if they a little more organized in terms of where they're wanting to put a team. I have said, and I said this back on Locked On A's, I have said that if you have to embrace the reality that the A's are leaving Oakland, I didn't want them to leave Oakland at all. But if you embrace that reality and said, okay, they're going to go, I thought there were other markets they should be looking at. I thought Portland is a much better baseball market than Las Vegas, much better. You've got a fan base and a population that's more deeply rooted than Las Vegas, which has been a more recent boom and a lot of transplants. You have more generational population in Portland. You have a larger region. You have a natural rival with the Seattle Mariners. And we've seen that they've been a very supportive team, fan base of their soccer team, of their, the Trailblazers. Hell, watch the Batter Bastards of Baseball on Netflix. Watch it anyway, because it's a wonderful documentary. But they supported the Portland Mavericks. And it seems like a more populous region than Las Vegas. I think there would have been more and much better there. Nashville also would have been that's to me the most obvious place to put a baseball team. But if you want to be the first into a market, then maybe you knock on a place like Austin, which may be tough to put another team in Texas. But I think all these would be better places than Las Vegas. And there's still so many questions to go on with Las Vegas. There's a couple other things to bring up with Las Vegas as well. But the A's are basically saying, hey, you had a good second half, and we're banking that you will take this 7-year deal. It's not, $100 million. It's a 7-year, $63.5 million. Is that what it is? It's a 7-year. Well, let me see what it is. Yeah, 7-year, $65.5 million extension. So at the end, he'll have played 9 seasons with the Athletics. And, some in Oakland and some in Sacramento and maybe some in Vegas. They may wind up in Vegas. And I've said before, I want to see wherever the A's land, I want to see them be successful. I think they have a better chance to be successful and maybe staying in Sacramento. And I do think it's even money at this point, them staying in Sacramento or them going to Las Vegas. But Butler's sticking around, which I find interesting. That he's going to be there. They made the weird signing of what's his name, Luis Severino, out of nowhere to be there for the long term. And Butler is now going to be there for the next bunch of years. and as is Brent Rooker, who signed a contract extension to stay with the Athletics in Sacramento. Maybe that could get Sacramento fans a little bit excited to know that some of these players are going to be here for a little bit. I'm still not 100% sure of how 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 much some of these extensions are really about improving the team and more about them avoiding what could be a massive lawsuit from the Players Association and from showing that they're just pocketing, player revenue, that there may be a backlash that they can't continue to get said revenue. I don't know if they're going to suddenly have these players to team-friendly extensions and then after the 2025 season, just dump all of them for prospects, which is their way. These are all on the table here, but it is demonstrating two things. One, if the A's can do this now, they could have done it before. And the people who talk on and on and on, did I mention on, about the need for a salary cap, we're demonstrating that what really is needed is a salary floor. Let's just turn back the clock not that long ago. The season just before COVID, the 2019 season, it seems like, 4 lifetimes ago. But do you remember how the A's were that year? Do you remember how the A's were? The A's were a 97 win team. They won 97 games that year. And they had a bunch of players. They had some veterans like Marcus Simeon, but he was under 30, and Jerkson Profar, and Matt Olson was a 25-year-old huge slugger, Gold Glove winner at first base. Heck, the corners, you couldn't get better than Matt Olson and Matt Chapman, Gold Glovers and MVP candidates. You had an infield. Olson, Simeon, and Chapman all got MVP votes in 2019. You had Brett Anderson and Chris Bassett and Frankie Montas and Mike Fiers in a pretty solid rotation right there. And you also saw, there was some depth in their bullpen that was led by Liam Hendricks, but they were a 97 win playoff team. Back-to-back trips to the playoffs. In fact, they made the playoffs 3 straight years. Remember that? They made it to the wild card game in 2018 and 2019. They won the division in the COVID year. And by the way, while their attendance wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination in 2019, they weren't at the bottom. They drew 1.6 million. There were 5 teams that drew worse than the A's in the American League. I'm not saying that it was great. They were still playing the crumbling Oakland Coliseum, but it wasn't like nobody showed up to those games. And you had Chris Davis, who didn't spell his name right, but still hit a bunch of home runs, and Robbie Grossman and Ramon Laureano got some big hits along the way. It was a fun team. It was a fun team, and they won the division again, or they won the division in the COVID year. They got to the wild card series, the division series, where they lost somehow to the Astros. And then in 2021, the team still had Sean Murphy at catcher, Matt Olson at first. They had Matt Chapman at third. They still had Frankie Montas. They still had Sean Manaea. They still had Chris Bassett. They still had a decent team that right up until they were a contending ball club. This is in 2021, the post-COVID year. Post-COVID year where they were in first place as late as the middle of June. And as late as August 12th, they were a strong playoff team. Now, after August 12th, where it just seemed like every other day they had a frustrating loss, on August 12th, they were the fourth best record in the American League. Better than the Red Sox, better than the Yankees. Now, after the middle of August, they had the second worst record in the American League, and they fell off a log. And after that, they broke up the team. But if they could have extended players now, they could have extended players then. They could have given Matt Olson, they could have given some of the players that they had on that squad a contract extension here or there. Matt Chapman could have been an Oakland A for a long period of time. Matt Olson could have been an Oakland A for a long period of time. Sean Murphy could have been for a long period of time. They could have extended some of those players then. I'm not talking about Raleigh Fingers. I'm not talking about Jose Canseco. I'm not talking about any team of the past. I'm talking about the recent past, back to 2021, which goes to show they had the ability to do it. If they're able to do it heading into a minor league stadium, they could have done it then. They could have put the best product on the field to give the A's a chance. Instead, they didn't. They were collecting the money from revenue sharing and not putting it in the team and not investing it in the stadium, and then looking up and saying, well, the fans aren't behind us. There was so much bitterness when that team was broken up. When they go, wait a minute, they were building something good. Nope, too late. You had your shot. We'll break him up again. Moneyball, Moneyball, Moneyball. They could have extended it there and given Oakland a real shot, and they didn't. And this is one of the reasons why people hate this management. They sabotaged the team to be able to say, well, we're not getting support. Better go. And then we have the Vegas BS, which, by the way, as of this recording, is still not resolved. Still not resolved. And by the way, let's all agree on something, please. Let's all agree on calling the Sacramento A's. Okay? Let's not go to this crap that they're saying, no, just refer to them as the Athletics. No, don't you gaslight us. Don't you act like reality isn't reality. There's too many things going on in the world right now. We have to accept things that we know are just not true. Because, well, that's what some people are saying. No, there's some things that are real. The Athletics or the A's are a baseball franchise. And when you refer to a baseball franchise, you refer to the team and the city where they play. That has been going on since the Braves were called the Boston Bean Eaters. There's never been a team that didn't have a city name with it. You find me where that's happened in Major League Baseball history. Even the Pilots who were there for 1 year with the Seattle Pilots. And if you want to say sometimes the name attachment may not be 100% accurate, hell, the Angels do not play in Los Angeles. They don't even play in Los Angeles County. I can listen to that. But they still have a name attached to them. So they are the Sacramento A's. Refer to them that way. If you're in the media, refer to them that way. They are playing in Sacramento for the fans of Sacramento. If they win the World Series this year, which I don't think they will, but I kind of wish they would, then please, by all means, call them the Sacramento A's. Don't fall in any of this nonsense. By the way, there's another weird thing. I'll talk about the salary for the final segment. This was weird. Mark Badane was hired to be the new president of the A's. Because he took the role that Dave Cavill, who was a not exactly honest person about the situation of the move from the A's from Oakland to Las Vegas by way of Sacramento. Mark Bardane, Cavill resigned. There you knew there was something bad happening behind the scenes there. Badane, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I've never said it out loud until just now. He used to be the Raiders president. You remember they were the Oakland Raiders, then they were the Los Angeles Raiders, then they're the Oakland Raiders. Now they're the Las Vegas Raiders. God forbid that multi-billion-dollar stadium they built there could have been multi-purpose. Then the A's would have a home too. But there's no love lost between the Raiders and the A's. The A's hate the Raiders because of they ruined the stadium to make to appease the Raiders when they moved back, and the A's attendance never recovered, and eventually the Raiders left anyway. But there was also a lot of bad blood between the two ownerships, and the guy who is now the president of the A's was talking about how the A's organization, and I quote, lacked honesty and professionalism. He said that publicly, and now he's working there. Hope they're paying him well. I hope he gets good benefits. They're the Sacramento A's, and I think there's a better chance that they're going to stay there than in Las Vegas. But if I'm wrong, and I have been wrong before, if they do land up in Vegas, which I'm not 100% sure they will, I am not rooting against them. I still want them to have success in Vegas because I want all teams to be in the good situation. I think Portland's a better spot. But they could have made those changes. They could have extended some of those players before. They didn't. They made a conscious choice to not do it. There's no way any of you can argue against it because we have to sometimes fight back in this fact-free world that we're living in right now and say, yes, the A's could have extended some of those players like Chapman and Olsen, and they chose not to. They had the ability to, and they chose not to. Yes, the A's could have improved the team, but they didn't because it was in their interest to be in a different stadium by the 2025 season, even if it was a minor league ballpark in Sacramento. And that's why this is happening. And yes, they are the Sacramento A's because the name of the franchise dating back to Connie Mack is the A's or the Athletics, and they no longer play in Philadelphia. They no longer play in Kansas City. They no longer play in Oakland. They play somewhere. They have home games. And that team are the Sacramento A's. Let's hear from our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I like the no shells variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days. I'm running around teaching my classes, doing my podcast. And if I just need a quick protein boost, it's always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, you got an in-shell option as well. Man, whether you're running between classes that you teach, you're dropping off the kids, you're doing your podcast, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. And Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking. Get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. A lot of people have said that baseball needs a salary cap, and I don't agree with that. I've seen other leagues that have salary caps that don't have the parity that baseball has. There's a lot of parity in baseball. If you don't believe me, look at the entire American League. Look at the American League right now. Is there one team standing heads and shoulders above everybody else? No. The Yankees are pretty good, but there are massive holes on that team, and they're suffering injuries. The Astros are pretty good, but they just lost Alex Bregman and a couple other key players. Cleveland's not bad, but they're not a great team by any stretch of imagination. There's no one great team. If you want parity in a league, you have, what is it? You have 15 teams in the American League, and 14 of them have at least a possibility of making the playoffs this year. Even the A's. Only the White Sox are the only team that doesn't have a shot. The whole whining about a salary cap comes from the fact that 2 teams don't care about the penalties of going over the luxury tax. You see, the Yankees care. The Yankees care like crazy. If the whole thing about the luxury tax was to curb the Yankees from doing too much spending, well, congratulations, they do. They have an obvious need at third base and to have a right-handed bat. And they will not trade for Nolan Arenado because they don't want to go over the threshold. You saw the Red Sox pull off the worst trade period in the 21st century period by dumping Mookie Betts for pennies on the dollar to get under the luxury tax. The one thing is there's 2 franchises who don't care. The Dodgers they don't care, and the Mets don't care. So the issue is not, oh, we need a salary cap to stop them. You have to realize that the way it's set up, 28 out of 30 teams are playing along. 2 teams are not, and that's something you're going to have to deal with. You have to deal with this. There may be an owner who says, I don't care, and you're going to have to deal with that. I've been saying you need a salary floor, and what's happening in Oakland is kind of short of, I don't know if that's a sentence. Forgive me. I am back from the hospital recently, demonstrating that I'm right. By forcing the A's to say, hey, you better start spending or you're in trouble. Well, they just kept some of their players together. They're putting, they're investing in the team. Now, whether or not I think this investment is real or for the long term, or that they have any real intention of having this team stay together for a while, well, you have Lawrence Butler, who's going to be there at least under contract for a bit, and Severino, who's going to be there under contract again, and Brent Rooker, who wanted to stay. The two players who led the A's in WAR last year were Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler, who are now signed to long-term deals, all because they were forced to spend money. And so the A's, against their will, under duress, improved their team. So the Yankees are not going crazy, bringing in Arenado and everything to avoid a luxury tax. And the A's are keeping their two best players for a few more years. That's what the system currently has. You have two outliers, the Mets and the Dodgers. Don't care. We'll spend whatever we want to. And you know what? They're both still vulnerable. The Padres nearly eliminated the Dodgers in the first round. The Mets were one Brave win and one Diamondback win in the regular season away from not even making the playoffs. The extended playoffs are the great equalizer. I don't want to hear any nonsense about a salary cap. That's just whining. That's just sour grapes. Look what the system is doing right now. The low-end team is being forced to spend. The big bad Yankees and Red Sox are making decisions based on, well, we don't want to spend too much. That's what the system is. You don't judge it based on the outliers. There's two outliers, 2 out of 28, and neither one of them are guaranteed a spot in the World Series. Dodgers aren't a lock. They're going to be very good, and they very well might win the World Series. So could the Phillies, who have really strong pitching. So could the Diamondbacks, who I think have superior pitching to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Look it up. So we need a salary floor to make sure some of the cheap teams are not just pocketing the revenue sharing and not putting it back in the team. That's why there should be an independent auditor saying, okay, if you are accepting revenue sharing, show us how you're putting it back on the field. That's not there for you to pocket. That's you there to improve your team and be competitive. Baseball is healthiest when all the teams have a chance, as I said, to do one of two things: tell their fans we're going to win now, or show them they got a plan for the years to come. 28 out of 30 teams are abiding, 2 are not. And if you root for a team in the Central, you don't have to worry about it. If you root for a team in the American League, you don't have to worry about it. The only people who have to worry about it are Diamondback fans, Padre fans, Giant fans, Phillies fans, and Braves fans. And your teams are going to probably make it to the playoffs anyway. There you go. Before we go to bed, let's go to the trivia question. The trivia question is this: when the strike hit in 1994, it ended a bunch of players' careers, including future Hall of Famer Rich Gossage. Rich Gossage's final appearance in the major leagues, he got a 3-inning save. That's how we said goodbye to Gossage, a 3-inning save. What former MVP flew out to right to end the final game pitched by Rich Gossage? Who was the last batter that Rich Gossage got out in his brilliant career? It was a former Hall of Famer and a big name in 1994. So put your answers right down here on YouTube. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, and leave your comments here and root for the Sacramento A's because that's what they're called. And if you're posting a comment, make sure to put the hashtag Everyday Sully. Talking about the Lawrence Butler extension and saying the A's could have done this before, but at least they're doing it now. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.